The conference room was dead silent. Marcus stood at the end of the long glass table, holding a cardboard box. His hands weren't shaking. That was the part that surprised everyone watching. His hands were completely still. "Effective immediately," Elena said from the other end of the table, not quite meeting his eyes. "We're eliminating your position. HR will walk you through your severance." She said it the way people read weather forecasts. No hesitation, no warmth, just facts delivered cleanly so they couldn't be argued with. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. He didn't say anything angry. He didn't make a scene. He just nodded once, picked up his box and walked out. And the whole room exhaled. Nobody noticed that when he reached the elevator, he pressed the button and then leaned his forehead against the cool metal door. Just for a second, just long enough to breathe. Then the doors opened and he walked in, and the doors closed behind him. And that was supposed to be the end of it. What Elena didn't know about Marcus, what almost nobody at that company knew, was that he had started every single morning for the past 3 years by waking up at 5:15, making 2 lunches, ironing a small pink shirt, and braiding hair. His daughter Lily was 8 years old. She had her mother's eyes and her father's stubbornness, and an absolute refusal to eat sandwiches with the crusts on. Her mother had left when Lily was 5, not because she was a bad person, but because she was a person who found out too late that she wasn't built for the life she'd chosen. She sent birthday cards, she called on holidays, but the day-to-day weight of raising a child that had landed entirely on Marcus. He didn't complain about it, not once, not to anyone at work. He just showed up. He showed up early. He stayed late when he could. He covered for colleagues during their emergencies without mentioning that he had emergencies too. They were just smaller and quieter, and named Lily. For 3 years, Marcus had been the lead systems architect at Vantage Solutions. He'd built most of the back-end infrastructure quietly, without fanfare, the way certain people do their best work invisibly, consistently, without needing applause. Elena had been CEO for 18 months. She'd been brought in to streamline, to cut the fat, to make the company leaner and faster before a major acquisition deal that would either save the company or be its last chapter. She was 39 years old. She was brilliant. She was tired in a way she never admitted out loud, and she had made a very bad mistake. The first sign that something was wrong came 6 days after Marcus was let go. One of the servers started throwing errors. Small ones at first, the kind the junior engineers told each other were probably nothing. Then not small ones. Then the kind that made people go very quiet in front of their screens and start calling each other across the office instead of using the chat system. Daniel, the head of engineering, knocked on Elena's door on a Thursday afternoon looking like a man who had bad news and was still deciding how bad to make it sound. "The client migration," he said. "The Hargrove account." Elena looked up. The Hargrove account was their biggest. It was also, not coincidentally, the centerpiece of the acquisition deal. "What about it? We can't complete it." Daniel sat down. "The integration architecture, it was built on a custom framework. Nobody on the team fully understands it. The documentation is incomplete." And the man who built it, he stopped. Elena felt something cold move through her chest. "Marcus," she said. Daniel nodded. "He didn't just build the system. He was the system. Everything he built was interconnected in ways we're only now starting to understand. We've been trying to reverse engineer it for 5 days, and we're not even close." Elena was quiet for a long time. How long until Hargrove notices? They already have. She got his number from HR. She called it standing at her office window, watching the city below like the distance might make the conversation easier. It rang 4 times, yeah. His voice was flat, not cold, just careful. "Marcus, this is Elena Voss." A pause. Then, "I know who it is." She had prepared a professional, measured opening. Instead, what came out was, "I made a mistake." Another pause. Longer this time. "I'm listening. The Hargrove integration is failing. The team can't navigate the architecture. We have maybe 10 days before the deal collapses and the company goes into crisis." She paused. "I need your help." The silence that followed was so long she almost said his name again. "Ms. Voss," he said finally. "I have a daughter. I had a job. I don't have it anymore. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, I spent 3 years building something I was proud of, and 6 days ago someone who'd been in that building for 18 months decided my seat cost too much." His voice didn't rise. That was the strange thing. It stayed completely level. I've applied to 9 jobs in the last week. I've had 2 callbacks. One of them can't start for 6 weeks. Elena closed her eyes. I'm not asking you to forget that happened, she said. I'm asking you to name your terms. He came back, not because he forgave her, not yet, but because he was a practical man with a daughter who needed health insurance and a lease that didn't care about principles. He negotiated well, better than she expected. He asked for his position back with a title adjustment, a raise, and a written clause protecting his role from elimination without cause for 2 years. He also asked, almost as an afterthought, for a flexible start time on Tuesdays and Thursdays so he could drop Lily at school himself instead of relying on the aftercare program. Elena agreed to all of it. He walked back into the office on a Monday. A few people nodded at him. Most pretended the whole thing hadn't happened, the way offices do when everyone knows something uncomfortable is true and nobody wants to be the one to acknowledge it out loud. Marcus sat down at his old desk, opened his laptop, and got to work. Elena watched him from across the open floor through her glass wall. She told herself she was simply relieved the crisis would be resolved. She told herself that was all it was. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Marcus worked 12-hour days. He came in early and left in time to pick up Lily. And then, after she was in bed, he opened his laptop again at the kitchen table and kept going. He didn't talk about that second part at work. He just appeared each morning looking like a man who had slept enough, even when he clearly hadn't. Elena started staying late too, not because she had to, because something about watching him work made her feel like she should be working harder too, like she had something to prove to him, or maybe to herself. One night around 9 o'clock, she walked past the break room and found him there, eating a sandwich over the sink, staring at nothing. She hesitated at the door. "You don't have to hover," he said without turning around. She walked in anyway, poured herself a glass of water, leaned against the counter a few feet away. "How's it going?" she asked. "Ask me in 4 days," she nodded. Then, because the room was quiet and she was tired, and tired people sometimes tell the truth. "Do you hate me?" He turned then, looked at her directly the way he had in the conference room, the way that didn't leave a lot of room to hide. "I don't hate you," he said. "I think you made a fast decision without enough information. I think you probably do that sometimes because the pace of this job makes you feel like hesitation is weakness." He paused. "I think you're probably good at your job, and you don't always know which room you're in." She didn't say anything for a moment. "That's a fair assessment," she said quietly. "Yeah," he said. "I know." The Hargrove deal closed on a Friday. The announcement went out company-wide at 4 in the afternoon. People cheered in the open office. Someone opened a bottle of sparkling cider. Elena stood at the front and gave a short speech about the team's resilience and what they'd accomplished under pressure. She thanked a lot of people by name. When she said Marcus' name, there was a pause in the room, just a small one, the kind that carries history in it. He was standing near the back. He nodded once when people looked at him, didn't smile, didn't stand up to acknowledge it, just nodded, like someone who had done a job and knew it had been done well and didn't need more than that. She caught his eye across the room. He held her gaze for exactly 2 seconds. Then he looked away. She went to his desk at the end of the day, when most people had already filtered out. "I want to say something to you," she said, "not as your employer." Just as she stopped, as a person who got something wrong. He leaned back in his chair and waited. "I looked at your file before I made that decision," she said. "I saw numbers, budget line, salary, performance scores. I didn't ask anyone who actually knew you. I didn't read anything about what Yaud actually built." She paused. "I reduced a person to a spreadsheet and I made a call, and it was wrong. Not just strategically. It was wrong as a human being." Something shifted in his face, just slightly. "I appreciate that," he said. And he meant it. She could tell. "Can I ask you something?" she said. He nodded. "The day I let you go, in the elevator, you kept it together the entire time. How did you do that?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I have an 8-year-old who watches everything I do. She's going to face moments in her life where someone takes something from her that she deserved to keep. I want her to have seen, at least once, what it looks like to walk out of a room with your dignity." Elena looked at him. She didn't say anything for a few seconds. "She's lucky," Elena finally said. "Yeah," he said softly. "So am I. Over the next 2 months, something slow and quiet happened. It didn't announce itself. It wasn't dramatic. It was coffee left on her desk with a sticky note that said asterisk, you have that Hendrix call at 9, don't forget asterisk. It was her stopping by his desk to ask his opinion on things that weren't technically his job. It was him actually giving it honestly, directly, without telling her what she wanted to hear. It was a Friday afternoon when Lily came to the office because the school day ended early and Marcus hadn't been able to find coverage. She sat at the small couch near reception with her backpack and her book and her absolute self-possession, and Elena walked by and stopped. "What are you reading?" she asked. Lily looked up. She had her father's serious eyes. "It's about a girl who becomes a lighthouse keeper," she said. "Everyone thinks she can't do it because she's small, but small doesn't mean weak." Elena smiled, really smiled, the kind that moved all the way to her eyes. "No," she said, "it really doesn't." Lily looked at her carefully. "Are you my dad's boss?" "I am. He says you're smart, but you work too much." Elena laughed, a genuine surprised sound that made two people across the office look up. "He said that." "He says that about himself too," Lily said, turning back to her book. "So I think it's a compliment." It was a Tuesday evening, weeks later, when Marcus knocked on her office door. She was still at her desk. She often was. "Go home," he said. She looked up. "I have 3 more. They'll be there tomorrow." He leaned in the doorway. "You had lunch at your desk. You skipped the afternoon walk you told me you were going to start taking. And you've been reading the same paragraph for 11 minutes. She stared at him. "I wasn't." She looked down at her screen. He was right. "I wasn't counting." "I wasn't either," he said. "I just pay attention." She saved her work. She closed her laptop. She stood up and reached for her coat, and he was still in the doorway, and she stopped a few feet away from him and said, "Why do you pay attention?" He looked at her for a long moment, and for the first time since she had known him, he didn't have a measured, careful answer ready. "I don't entirely know yet," he said honestly, "but I think I'd like to find out." They didn't fall into each other all at once. That's not how it happened. Life isn't usually built that way. It was slow. It was careful. It was two people who had both been through enough to know that real things don't rush. It was dinners that started as accidental and became planned. It was Lily announcing with complete 8-year-old authority that Elena needed to learn how to make proper scrambled eggs, and then supervising the lesson with the seriousness of a chef. It was Elena showing up to Lily's school play with flowers and sitting in the 3rd row and watching Marcus in the audience. This man who had walked out of a room with his dignity and built something invisible and irreplaceable and gotten up every morning at 5:15 to braid his daughter's hair and feeling something settle inside her chest like a door gently closing, not shutting, closing, quietly. Like something that had been waiting for a long time had finally come home. There's a kind of bravery that nobody puts in job descriptions. It's not loud. It doesn't show up in performance reviews. It's the bravery of showing up for a child when you're exhausted, of walking out of a room when someone has taken something from you and choosing not to let the anger take something too, of admitting, out loud, to another person *vathwas, got this wrong *, when it would have been so much easier to just move on. Some of the most important moments in our lives don't happen with music playing. They happen in break rooms, over St-Keaton sandwiches. They happen in elevator doors and quiet offices at 9 o'clock at night. They happen in the small, unglamorous seconds when someone decides to see another person really see them instead of just the line on the spreadsheet. Marcus didn't need saving. He was never the one who was broken. But sometimes the people we think we're helping are the ones who quietly teach us how to be better, how to slow down, how to read the same room twice, how to earn the things that matter instead of just acquiring them. And sometimes if you're willing to say *why was wrong* before pride seals the door shut, what you thought was an ending turns out to be the only beginning that ever made sense.